95% of South Africans are in debt, whether it is secured debt or whether it's unsecured debt. But for sure, so many people are even over indebted, which means that the income that they're having is actually less compared to the debt that they have, because people are financing themselves or they are living through debt, right? Which means that people are living the life they can actually not afford, right? So today we want to discuss about the two methods in which you can get out of debt, since so many people of our people are in debt. So we want to discuss how you can actually reduce your debt. So let's get to it, shall we? So before we can actually break down the two methods in which you can actually use to get out of debt, right? Before you can actually choose what strategy to use to get out of debt, you need to do the following things, right? So the very first thing you need to do is to build up an emergency fund, right? So an emergency fund is very much important because life happens, right? And there's something that is called Murphy's Law. And Murphy will for sure visit you in one way or another. So to make sure that you are prepared when Mr. Murphy visits you, you need to make sure that you build up an emergency fund. So what is an emergency fund? An emergency fund is a fund that you will use in cases when there's an emergency, right? It is self-explanatory in actual fact. So what does it mean? It means that if, for example, if somebody gets sick, if a family member gets sick, if there's a funeral, if your car tires burst or you get a puncture, something that is uninspected and something that you have not actually planned for, you need to make sure that you build up any emergency fund, because so many people go to debt in actual fact to cover these things that we call emergencies. Now they are caught off guard, they don't have money, so what is they do? They run to the bank and actually get some money to make sure that they cover whatever the emergency it is. So to prevent yourself from now going back into taking loans and going into too much debt, you need to build up an emergency fund. So I will say that as a minimum on a monthly basis, put an emergency fund of 1,000 away just to prepare for an emergency. So every time that you have an emergency, you just take from there instead of going, right? Go back to the bank, right? That's gonna charge you a whole lot of interest rates and you will stay in debt for such a long time, right? So this is the first thing that you need to do before you apply one of the two methods that we're going to break down in terms of reducing your debt, right? So the second thing is that you must make sure that you stay up to date on all your debt, right? How do you do this? You make sure that you pay at least a minimum installment on all your credits, right? All the debts that you have, there's a minimum installment that you need to pay. Make sure that you are up to date with all of them, because if you are not up to date with all of them, this will actually block you, or will actually make your credit record go very bad, right? So it is helpful for your credit score to be perfect and to be at a right standard. So you need to make sure that you pay all the minimum installment and in time. Remember, there is good debt and there's bad debt, right? So it is very helpful to keep a good credit score so that you can be able to borrow good debt, right? And not bad debt, right? What is the difference between a good debt and a bad debt? A good debt is a debt that you will take either from the bank or from wherever, but it will actually generate some sort of income for you. So for example, if you take a mortgage for a flat or an apartment or something, and you rent out that apartment and it actually makes a positive cash flow, then it means that is a good debt, right? But if you take out, for example, let's say a personal loan for personal loan for maybe financing something that cannot be refundable, maybe in case of an emergency, you take that personal loan and you fund that emergency and you cannot actually repay it back from that amount, then that is actually a bad debt. So it is very much critical and important that you understand that you still need to keep a very good credit score, so that the lenders can actually look at you in good faith and actually still borrow you some money, right? The third thing that is very much important is to make sure that you track your expenses, your income. You must actually know what percentages of your income goes where, what is the highest percentage of your expenses. So this is done through budgeting. So you need to have a budget in a month to make sure that, okay, this is so much that you spend for grocery, this is so much you spend for fun, this is so much you spend on your car, on your house, for your kids, for your school fees. All those things need to be broken down, and you have a clear tracking of where your money is going and also where your money is coming from. Because if you don't have this tracking of your money, then my goodness, there is no way you're gonna actually be able to recover from that debt that you are. It might take you forever, right? So now let's get to the two methods that you can use in order to reduce the amount of debt that you are in right now, right? So we have what we call the snowball debt repayment method, and we have the avalanche debt repayment method. So what is the difference between these two methods, right? The difference between these two methods, it also depends on what kind of personality are you, right? And what kind of a person are you? What are your preferences, right? So I will start with what we call the snowball method, which is the method that I prefer, but it doesn't make it right, or it doesn't make it better than the avalanche method. So both methods depend on who you are as a person, right? So when we're talking about what we call the snowball method, right? So you will have a list of the debts that you have. For example, you have a credit card, you have a clothing account, you have a car, you have a house, and you have a personal loan, right? So out of all these things, right, when you are doing a snowball method, you check which of these has the smallest amount, right? It means you will put them into, if you are very organized like me, you will put them into a spreadsheet and you will sort them from the smallest amount to the highest amount, right? So what we'll do is that, remember we spoke about budgeting. So on that budget, you'll check actually how much is your unaccounted income after you get your salary, and after when you have actually spent everything else. You will have what we call unaccounted income. It means that amount that is not allocated to anything, right? So you will take that amount that is not allocated to anything, and then you will pay on the smallest amount on a monthly basis, right? On the smallest amount of the debt on a monthly basis. What does this mean? This means that if you have a debt of 1,000, you have a debt of 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, and 5,000. You will start with the debt of 1,000. So the thing that you're gonna do is to pay the minimum installment, and on top of the minimum installment, you'll take the unaccounted money or the income, and then you put it on the smallest amount, right? So how does this help you? It helps you to make sure that you pay the smallest amount as quick as possible, right? As quick as possible. And for some people, you'll get the satisfaction that you are actually seeing progress, right? So let's say you have paid up the 1,000 debt amount, which is maybe the clothing account or whatever, because those ones maybe for most people will be the lowest one, right? So let's say you have paid up that one. So when you have paid that one, now when that is paid up, you need to do what is called a snowball, right? So it means you will take the minimum amount that you were paying here and the additional amount, which is the unaccounted income, and you'll put it on the second one, right? And then as time goes, you finish the second one, then you roll it and snowball towards until you are done to the last one, right? So this helps you to is actually the fastest way to pay debt, right? So, and it is the way that I prefer to pay my debt. Concentrate on the small one, kill it, and then go to the next smallest one. Kill it, then go to the other one until you are flat out. Right? So let's go to the next one, which is called the avalanche method. Right? So we still go back to the 5 debts because you still have the 5 debts, right? So on these 5 debts, you compare which one has the highest interest rate, right? In most cases, your credit card or your personal loan will have the highest interest rate. So now it means you go again, you check on your budget, what is the amount that is unaccounted, and then you pay it on that one. But this one, because you are only checking the highest interest rate, might take a whole lot of time. And if you are not very analytical, you can give up too quickly because you might think that it's taking too long for you to actually pay up your debt. Right? So as always, this is the channel where we talk about all things real estate, all things finances, ensuring that we empower you to be the driver of your financial situation and not just be the passenger of your financial situation. Guys, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, to share with your friends, like and comment on the comment section below on what you actually think. Okay, so I will see you on the next one, where we'll talk about all things real estate, all things finances. Cheers.